It has never been easier to score in the NBA than it is right now. Let me give you some numbers. This season, right now, as the recording of this video, there are 30 players averaging 20 plus points per game in the NBA. If you go back a couple of years, the 2015-16 season, that number was just 20. That's a significant jump. If you go 5 years back further than that, the 2010-11 season, there were 19 players averaging over 20 points per game for an entire NBA season. So clearly, scoring is easier in the league. And there are two questions now that come from this. One, why is that the case? And two, is that a problem for the NBA? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But quickly, before we get started, I like to remind people, leave a like rating on the video if you enjoy it. It does help me out a ton, helps get the video out to more people on YouTube so more people can see this kind of content. If you are enjoying it, make sure you leave a like rating. You can also subscribe to the channel as well if you're new. What's up? My name is Sucker for the most consistent NBA content on YouTube every single day. And you can also hang out with me outside of these videos in a Linktree link down in the description below. With those things said, let's talk about it. So there's two questions that need to be answered here, right? It's like, why is this happening? Does it matter? Is it a big deal, right? Well, before we get there, I'm going to give you a short list of players that are not averaging 20 points per game this season in the NBA, and you're going to tell me if you think that these guys are capable, if they have the talent to average 20 points per game in the NBA in an entire regular season, okay? Domantas Sabonis, Gordon Hayward, Michael Porter Jr., Anthony Edwards, Andrew Wiggins, John Collins, Kyle Lowry, and Buddy Hield. None of those players are averaging 20 points per game so far this season, but I think it's pretty clear that most, if not all of those guys are capable, which makes my larger point here. How many players in the NBA could actually average over 20 points per game for an entire season if they were in a good situation, if they were getting a lot of shots, if they were on a team that didn't have a ton of other offensive creation, if they were on a team that really needed them to score, aka Jeremy Grant in Detroit, or any number of different situations? How many guys in the league do you think are talented enough to score 20 points per game for an entire season, assuming they're healthy and in the correct situation? Well, if you think there's at least two guys on every single roster in the league that are capable of scoring 20 plus points per game, even if they aren't currently, then that number is at least 60. And I think if you just mentally go through the teams in the league, yeah, there's a lot of players on every single roster that could probably score 20 plus, right? And if you go, there's an average of 2 players, that's 60, an average of 3 players, that's 90. I think you could get pretty close to 80 to 100 players that you feel confident about in the correct situation could score 20 points per game in the NBA, okay? And that speaks to a larger conversation of like, why is that the case? Why is it so much easier to score 20 points per game? Why have, overall per game scoring numbers increase to the point where we had guys like James Harden averaging 40 points per game for an entire month? That was unheard of when I started following basketball, right? Why is that the case? Well, there's a couple of reasons here, most of which are obvious. Some of them are a little bit more nuanced, okay? One, the pace. The game is played at a faster pace. There's more of an emphasis on playing in transition. Generally, the players in the league right now are just more athletic. They're faster, they're quicker, and they're getting up and down the court at a faster pace. There's a lot more emphasis on teams being younger as well. Not every team is out there running around guys that are 30 plus. There's a lot more younger teams. There's a lot more rebuilding teams. There's teams that are tanking, and they're really trying to develop their players, and they want to get them as many possessions as possible. And as a result, the pace has certainly increased. Okay. 3-point shooting, of course, is another reason, just sheer volume. Even if the efficiency has not necessarily increased, when you're shooting more threes at the same efficiency or similar efficiency to what has been happening in the past, of course, these scoring numbers are going to go up. Most of the guys that are averaging 20 plus points per game this season are doing so while shooting, at least a couple of threes a game. It's unlikely in today's day and age that unless you're a true big guy, that you're going to average a ton of points and be one of the scoring leaders in the league if you're not shooting at least a relatively high volume of three-pointers at pretty good efficiency, right? And the last thing that I think goes a little bit more unnoticed here is the free throw shooting stuff. I think there are more free throws typically in a given NBA game now than there used to be. That's as a result of different rule changes that the league has implemented over the last couple of seasons to make sure that there's less hand checking, there's more freedom of movement. Teams are getting into the bonus way earlier in quarters than they typically would. They're getting to the line a lot more when they drive to the rim. You can say it's a softer game if you want to, but quite frankly, it doesn't really matter if that's the case or not. These guys are getting to the line more. And again, along with the 3-point shooting volume, free throw attempt volume is another huge indicator of a guy that is going to be scoring well in the league. You need to get to the free throw line a good amount. You need to shoot a good amount of threes. And a lot of guys are getting really good at this. And I think that is the last piece of the puzzle here is overall, from an offensive and a scoring and a perimeter talent perspective, The league is arguably more talented now than it's ever been. Maybe not necessarily at the top. You could argue that in the past there were eras that the top 8 in the league were better than the top 8 is right now from a scoring and a perimeter facilitating playmaking standpoint, right? But I don't really think the depth has ever been where it is right now. Where, like I said, you could look at any given roster and point out 2 or 3 guys that could average 20 points per game in a given season. And that is for a variety of reasons. The AAU, culture and things like that prioritizes perimeter playmaking. It prioritizes scoring. And a lot of these guys come into the league now with a scoring mindset. There's not a lot of guys you're drafting that are thinking they're going to be a role player, a 3-and-D guy, right? There's a lot of guys coming into the league now that know how to score. They're perimeterally talented, regardless of their height, their size, their weight. And even if they don't get an opportunity to be the number 1 guy on a team, they can still be a 6th man. They can still be a guy that's capable. Like, for example, Jordan Clarkson, I think, is certainly capable of averaging 20 points per game across an entire NBA season, right? But he's not considered one of the better scorers in the league necessarily. And that shows a level of depth of scoring options at the top as well as throughout the top, 60 players in the entire league, right? And the only thing that's restricting the amount of guys that can average 20 points per game is the opportunities in which these guys, in which these guys can be in an ideal situation, right? Because it's not like Jeremy Grant is going to average 20 points per game wherever he goes, right? In certain situations, he's a 20 point per game guy, which is the case for 50 players in the league, right? But there's only so many situations. That's why there's only 30. There's an average of 1 guy per team in the league that's averaging over 20 points per game because you're restricted by the amount of ideal circumstances. But if that was lifted and there was an infinite number of teams and situations in the NBA, a lot of guys, I would venture to guess somewhere between 70, 80, 90, maybe even all the way up to 100 different players in the league, I believe, could average 20 points per game for an entire regular season. Now, the other aspect of this is this a problem? This is a good thing. The argument for it not being a good thing would just be that it waters down the product, right? A guy scoring 50 points like Kevin Porter Jr. the other night, the impact of that and the impressiveness of that is watered down because guys score 30, 35, 40 on any given night, right? And so it doesn't have the same level of impact. You're more resistant to it because it's not as big of a deal. When Brandon Jennings scored 50 points back in the day, it was a huge deal. Not that Kevin Porter Jr.'s 50 the other night wasn't, but it just didn't have the same level of impact. And I think you could make the case that whether it be on individual scoring performances or the product as a whole, having higher scoring performances more consistently waters down the product a bit to where some of those things are almost expected. Now, the counter to that would be you'd rather have more fun, more exciting games for the casual fan base, for guys that aren't watching every single NBA game. You'd rather have the likelihood be that when they do turn on a game, it is a fun game, it is exciting. There are guys dropping 30, 35, 40, and that is the model the league has pivoted towards for the last 15 years. They recognized in the early 2000s that the product they were putting out on the floor was not what they wanted from an entertainment standpoint. There were a lot of games that were just a slugfest. There wasn't a lot of creativity. It was a lot of isolation, low-scoring games. The game was very physical. And this is an intentional thing on the part of the league to make sure that they're putting out a product that is entertaining, that brings in the casual fan base, because ultimately it's a money-based thing, right? Like they want to bring in as much revenue as they can. And so from the league's perspective, an increase in scoring and scoring being easier is certainly a positive for them in terms of bringing in money, in terms of bringing in new fans, new revenue. If you want to make the case against that and you want to say, well, the games don't matter as much anymore, the game is too soft, or it's not as much fun to watch because it doesn't feel like there's any stakes. It feels like anybody can go out there and pretty easily get 20. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying from the league's perspective, from a revenue perspective, they're all in on this. And it's only probably going to continually go up as guys learn how to get, even more three-point attempts off, as guys learn how to get to the free throw line more. As these younger players continue to come up in the league with more and more scoring skill from the minute that they get there, this is going to continue to be a thing. And I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing. I think that it's interesting and it's exciting. You can turn on an NBA game and Kevin Porter Jr. can go for 50, or Terrence Ross can randomly drop 40, right? There's a lot of talent in the league, and I don't really see how that can be a bad thing, right? I think there are a lot of situations that professional sports leagues have been in over the last couple of seasons where they would have loved to have too much talent, and they would have loved to have guys scoring too many points and doing too many exciting things. And I don't necessarily think that we've gotten to the point where it's watering down the product. Now, maybe some of the shot selection stuff, or guys getting to the free throw line a ton, that then result in the higher scoring numbers. If you want to make that case, I think it's absolutely one that you could make. I've talked about that in a previous video with Trae Young, but ultimately it's never been easier to score right now in the NBA than it is in this current moment. There's a lot of guys that could probably average over 20 plus, and it's only restricted by the amount of situations that a player could be in and potentially average 20. I'm interested to know what you guys have to say down in the comment section below in this video. Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Do you feel like we've reached the breaking point now of scoring where this number of guys averaging over 20 plus is never going to go higher than 30? That's the threshold, and this is kind of the peak of this easy scoring era in the NBA. Do you think it's overall a negative? Do you enjoy watching the games more or less now than you did 5-10 years ago when it seemed like scoring was a bit more of a premium, and it added a little bit more to the excitement when a guy did have a huge game? All those things. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say down in the comment section below. But that is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you guys very much for watching. As I said in the beginning, my name is Tucker. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like rating on it. Check out more videos from me in the boxes on screen, and come hang out with me at the socials link down in the description below if you guys want to see me outside of these videos. With all those things said, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.